Hello, mathematicians. Okay, we are starting our trigonometry unit, and I know trigonometry sounds like it's going to be challenging, but actually, when we learn it by baby steps, you will be able to figure out these pretty easily since there are steps for every process. So, in order to do well in trig, you have to remember Pythagorean theorem from 8th grade. But if you don't remember, no worries. That's why we're going to go over this lesson today. So go ahead and say Pythagorean theorem. Now, Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, let's go ahead and look at what that means exactly. We use Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides of a right triangle. And by a right triangle, I know it's a right triangle if it has this little box here in one of the corners of the triangle. So that little symbol right there means this is a right triangle, and right triangles mean that they have a measure of 90 degrees. They are 90-degree corners. Now, in a right triangle, the sides are called A and B, and they are called legs. They are the legs of the triangle. A is a leg, and B is a leg. The legs are the two sides that come from that right angle. So notice our right angle is here. So there is a leg, and there's a leg. And you know what? If I accidentally said this was A and this was B, totally okay. Now, side C, this is the hypotenuse. So say hypotenuse. Now the hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle. So notice that C here. C, I'm going to highlight here, C is my hypotenuse. It is the longest side of the triangle, and it is opposite of the right angle. Now, for any right triangle, if I have a right triangle, then I know that if I take A and square it and add it to B squared, it will equal C squared. So we're going to use Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides from some of our right triangles. Now, I'll walk you through a few of these. I do highly suggest highlighting like I do. It really does help to understand where everything goes and what numbers belong where. So let's go ahead and take a look at number one. Number one, we have a right triangle, and I know it's a right triangle because it has this little symbol. Then I notice that I have legs, A and B. I am looking for my hypotenuse. That is my C. So what I'm going to do, it's always really good practice to write your formula first. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute my values in. If it helps, go ahead and label this is A, this is B, this is C. A is 8. So I'm going to put 8 in for A, but remember we got to keep that little squared. Then I'm going to substitute 13 in for B. 13 squared equals C squared. I don't know what C squared is because that's my X. You can either put X here or you can put C squared. I'm just going to leave it as C squared, but when I find C, C is actually X. Now, to actually start solving, we do have to square these numbers. So I notice that 8 squared means the same thing as 8 times 8. So just so you remember, when I square something, it means I multiply it that many times by itself. 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. Plus, now 13 squared is going to be 13 times 13. And if you need to get your calculator out, go ahead and do that. 13 times 13 is 169. And then equals C squared. Now I do need to add those together, and I am going to use the calculator on my phone. So I am going to start with 64, and I'm going to add it to 169. And I get 233 equals c squared. Now, I'm not done yet because look at, I'm looking for c. I'm not looking for c squared. So I have to come and undo that square. Now, an inverse operation, the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I am going to square root both sides. And when I square root, and again, if I'm going too fast here, I can meet with you in group and talk with you more about this actual step. So c squared, the square root of c squared is c. So I'm going to write it over here. And then the square root of 233. Well, I'm going to need to turn my calculator the other way around. And notice that I have that square root right here. So what I can do is I can hit that button and notice I got 15.26. So I'm going to round that to 15.3. And that is my c. And since c is the same thing as x, I know that this x up here is 15.3. That is how long my hypotenuse is. Now, I know that was a lot. Let's go ahead and try a second one. We'll do a few of these together. Okay, so next triangle, I notice that I have legs. Now, notice it's been flipped around. So make sure you find that right triangle, and the legs extend from the right triangle. So this is a leg, and this is a leg. And then I know that directly across from the right triangle is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to go ahead and label. Now remember, it doesn't matter which one's A, which one's B, because this is addition and I can mix them up. So I can go ahead and put A, B, but I have to have the hypotenuse as C. Like there is no way we can change that. That has to be. So I'm going to go ahead and write up here A squared plus B squared equals C squared. My A is 27, so I'm going to substitute in 27 squared, plus my B is 22, 22 squared, equals C squared. I don't know C squared, so I'm going to leave that empty. Now, these are bigger numbers. I don't know these off the top of my head, so I do have to use my calculator for this. I am going to go 27 squared, so 27 times 27 equals 729, plus 22 times 22 is 484, equals C squared. Now to start simplifying here, I do need to add my 729 plus 484, so now I'm just going to add my 729 back in, and I get 1,213 equals C squared. Now remember, I'm not looking for C squared, I'm looking for C. So I have to undo my square by using a square root. Now I'm going to turn my calculator sideways, and I'm just going to hit that square root button, and I get 34.828. It goes on forever. 34.8 is going to be my C. 34.8. Now I also know that that is my x. My x is now 34.8. So now I know the length of my hypotenuse. Now sometimes, let's go ahead and take another look here at number 3. Number 3, I want to make sure we don't get tricked here, because we have been looking for C in both of these. But what do we notice here? Notice that C is given to us. I notice that my legs, coming from my right triangle, are 7 and x. I don't know one of the legs. I do know my hypotenuse. Remember, my hypotenuse is across from the right triangle, and so that is my hypotenuse. So we have to be much more careful this time when we substitute our values in. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm going to go ahead and label these. This is my A, this is my B, this is my C. Now my A squared is, my A is 7, so I'm going to put in 7 squared. Then when I go to add B, notice that B is an x. So I'm just going to leave it b squared because I don't know what it is, and that's what I'm looking for. And then my c is 9. So I'm going to put 9 squared. So now we're back to needing to solve. Let me leave that up there for a few minutes. 7 times 7 is 49. Plus, I don't know b squared, equals 9 times 9 is 81. I now have to isolate my variable. So notice that b squared has 49 over here. We need this all by itself. So I'm going to have to move this 49. If you remember back to Math 1, in order to move something, I need to use its opposite. This is a positive 49, so I'm going to subtract 49. And that becomes a 0, and it's gone. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to minus 49. So now I'm going to hit C. I'm going to hit 81 minus 49, and I get 32. So b squared equals 32. Now remember, I'm looking for b, not b squared. So I'm going to use my square root to undo the squares. And now I'm just going to hit that button, and I have b equals 5 point, and that's 67. So 65 is closer to 70 than it is to 60, so it's going to be 5.7. Okay, now let's go ahead and do one more, and then we'll pause here, and then we'll work on word problems in the back. Okay, notice here, I want you to go ahead and highlight, find your legs. You should have highlighted these two. Highlight your hypotenuse. Here is my C. If it helps, go ahead and label. I've got A, I've got B, I've got C. Now go ahead and write the formula. Stop the video if you need to, and then come back and check my work. I'm substituting in 19.1 squared plus b squared. I don't know b, we're looking for b. And 30.5 squared. Now let me do my work. 19.1 times 19. You know what? I'm going to show you. I can do 19.1 and then just hit the square button. That makes it easier. I get 364.81 plus b squared equals, now I'm going to hit 30.5 squared is 930.25, and I'm squeezing all those numbers in. Notice I am going to have to do the moving again. I'm going to have to subtract 364/81 from both sides. Oops, 64. Sorry, I made that messy. Okay, that becomes 0. I'm left with b squared. Now I'm going to subtract 364.81, and I get 565.44. And remember again, I'm not looking for b squared, I'm looking for b, so I'm going to square root both sides, hit my square root button, and this is going to round. B is 23.8. Okay, go ahead and try a few on your own, and then check with me and we'll check your answers.